So I've sat down with, I believe his name is Officer, oh, why can't I think of his name?
I reckon.
It just drew a blank.
Oh,
It's
you're such a good boy.
Officer Marks.
Okay.
And Officer Marks is super awesome. I've actually visited him a couple of times, but
Okay.
I've been very nervous. I actually am stationed out in San Diego, and because of my programming, ABA psychology, I tend to do things alone.
Okay.
It's a little bit newer to me
Right.
because I'm so used to being around other people. I am very diverse and inclusive, but coming in contact with beings who are a little bit higher up in the totem pole outside of corporate America,
Well,
it's kind of
my friend,
intimidating.
I put my pants on one leg at a time. I am nobody special. I'm a human being just like you.
Yes.
And so there's really no reason to be nervous.
Okay, good.
And so I'm old and I'm not very in tune with some newer things.
Yeah.
So you'll just have to forgive me if I say something and you're like,
It's okay.
that's not cool. Oh, just tell me why it's not, and I'm good. I won't do it again.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I know I'm very appreciative, first off, of you
Sure.
taking time out of your day and morning to sit down and interview with me.
Mhm.
I'm also very grateful that you actually acknowledge the pronouns aspect. I know that's a little bit newer to beings.
It's really new for me.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and I'm not a stickler for them as I go through the gender, so with me, you don't have to worry.
Okay.
I don't think I have to give you a lesson on that. Obviously, I'm not here to
No.
lecture you. I'm just more so interested in the day in life of a firefighter as well as a captain-in-chief in the firefighting community.
Sure.
So first off, what is your name for the camera and the audience over there?
So my name is Joe Warner, and I'm the executive captain with the Garfield Heights Fire Department.
Okay, awesome. And how long have you been a firefighter?
So I've been with Garfield Heights for 22 and a half years, but I started right out of high school as a volunteer, and then you have to, well, back then, you had to take civil service tests to get on somewhere where you were paid.
Okay.
And so that took a little bit. So technically from 1993 to now, I've always been doing firefighting. Before that, I worked in a factory. I was a garbage man for a little bit. And, yeah.
That's super awesome. I actually was born in '93, so it's kind of awesome that you've
Yeah.
been in the service for 28 years.
Mhm.
Prefer pronouns, Officer Ward.
Oh, male, or just
Yeah.
call me Joe. We're
Okay.
fine.
Joe. All right.
We're just two people having a conversation. That's really good.
Okay, awesome. And I know you said prior to being in the firefighting force, you had a few other jobs. Where did you graduate high school from?
So I graduated from Chardon High School.
Okay, that's super awesome. Chardon High School, that's the one that had the mass shooting. I'm sorry.
It did. But they've also just had 2 state championships, actually 3.
Okay.
So,
oh, shoot.
football, yeah.
Football? All right.
So that's a positive thing.
Oh, definitely. I feel it's, you know what, it's kind of funny. A few of my undergrad friends from the University of Toledo actually went to Chardon, and they're
very good.
awesome people. And they actually kind of 2 of them went off into the firefighting community, and then the other one went off into the, he's a doctor now, so it's super,
awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool to see everyone going into these first responder fields. So that's quite nifty. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank again.
That's okay.
You're actually the very first person that I've sat down with outside of civilians.
Okay.
So, and I typically tend to do real life content, so it is
Sure.
a lot of unediting. Because I like to show that we are humanistic, we're not robotic. In psychology, I understand that.
Yeah. When you put the editing in there and you make it smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, oh, well, that's how it really is. No, it's not smooth. It's messy. Yeah.
Yes. In terms of firefighting, when was the first time you actually got to go on to, what is it called?
So when was like the first actual fire I went to?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was actually a barn fire in Middlefield.
Okay.
So I started out with Hamden Volunteer Fire Department, and then we got called to go help Middlefield, which is a little bit of a drive.
Okay.
And
About how far?
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna let you all know, in Ohio, 15, 20 minutes is actually kind of long. It's like kind of far. Everything's kind of spread out.
so I think what I remember about that was I ended up tripping over dead horses and stuff.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We love horses. We love animals.
Everybody loves animals, right?
Yes, exactly. And I know you said you did a lot of volunteering. How many years or months did it take for you to do volunteer hours?
So I was a volunteer with Hamden for we'll say 3 or 4 years, and then I started working as a part-time fireman, so I was getting paid. I was working like a specific number of hours
Okay.
at Concord, which is the next town north of Hamden.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I worked for them for 20 years, just part-time.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, I worked so then I finally got hired here in '99, but I stayed with Concord, so I worked there and here.
Okay.
That's usually what most firemen do. They work at another job on the side. So
That's super. That's super cool. It's nice to see that you had some in-field training prior. I know some beings, they're constantly trying to figure out how exactly to get into these fields, and if you need a degree or anything of that nature. Is this one of the professions where you need a degree at an entry level?
no.
No.
In fact, right now, there aren't people that want to be firemen, paramedics, police officers. They just don't want to do that. And so we're struggling trying to recruit and get people. So if anybody wants to be a fireman, this is a great time to do it. You need to get your medical training, which would be EMT paramedic,
Okay.
and then your firefighting training. And you could get a full-time job fairly easier than when I started. Because like here, I remember there was between 300 and 400 people taking a test for 3 slots. So there was a lot of people to compete against.
It seems like the competition now is social media, which I, even though I like working in person. Oh, you okay, buddy? You're a little too excited. Calm down. Is it because you're trapped? I don't know. You move around so much. I thought bringing you would be a good idea and it would be fun. You're turning it into a mess. But yeah, everyone's like competing to be on social media, and I'm just like I don't really. I mean, though I understand social media, I'm much more of an in-person type of being.
Well, social media, we're seeing a very polished version of whatever it is.
Yes.
And not the reality of it. And so now, depending on the person that's observing it, they're like, well, that's how it's supposed to be. Well, no, it's not that way. reality is it's much harsher, but it can actually be far more beautiful. You're just getting this polished version that they want you to see. It's unfortunate, and I think every person gets suckered into it, where you're like, oh, look how cool that is, I want to do that, and then after a time you'll realize, like, this is empty, there's nothing to it, but the personal interactions, there's a ton to it.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Is firefighting kind of like that? Well, I guess not. I'm not gonna say firefighting, but being a firefighter. I know you don't all just go out and obviously fight fires.
No.
I know you also do a lot of community service and activities and engaging.
So like here, our call volume it's high, and we do a lot of EMS calls. Like, that's mostly what we do. Okay. So we're constantly with the public, and we're with them on their worst day. Now you'll hear stories of, like, people calling for a toothache or stubbed toe, and yes, those things do happen. Yes. You just deal with it. You smile and go, okay, you want to go to the hospital? Fine. And you just deal with it. Okay. You can't help it. People are people. Some endure more pain, and when they finally call you, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you call us sooner? Like, for the love of God, please call us sooner. Yeah. And then you have others that are calling because, they have a sniffle and they're worried. Okay. You just deal with it. Yeah.
Pain tolerance and endurance.
Well, it's different for every person. Pain is the first indicator that you get, hey, something's wrong. And so probably the best way to put it is the sensitivity level for each person is different. Some I know for diabetics, they don't have the same amount of pain warning that maybe you and I would have. So let's say you and I, we had chest pain, and we're like, oh, a diabetic may not feel the chest pain at the level we're. I'm going off on a tangent. I think you asked something else, and I just went down a different road. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm starting to notice. Before I ask this question, if say I were someone who didn't understand medical terminology, you said EMS. Do you want to elaborate on what EMS stands for?
Oh, yeah, emergency medical service. So it's all the medical stuff that would happen. Heart attacks, difficulty breathing, asthma, diabetic issues, strokes, traumatic injuries like car accidents or people being shot or stabbed, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
The actual fighting fires, it's not a very big number. We fight more fires here in Garfield Heights, Maple Heights, this region, than other outlying communities. That's just what it is. Older homes, older people, the poor. Unfortunately, the poor have more fires than rich people, and it's what it is, and it sucks.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
The very people who can't afford to have this happen have it happen to them, and it's terrible.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're gas stoves and gas furnaces in general, so it would just make more sense than someone who has access to like an electrical appliance.
Well, if you have access to newer stuff built under newer codes, yeah. But if you're in an older home and the level of care that the older home has gotten is not there, or you have whatever, yeah, that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, it's okay. And then I noticed you use some medical terminology. So because you use medical terminology, and I know you said you also to become a firefighter you have to take I'm sorry, what was it? EMT?
EMT and then paramedics. So like
Okay,
here
so
in Garfield
cross-trained.
Heights, we're all paramedics.
Yes.
And so in the state of Ohio, that's the highest level of pre-emergency care. I mean, unless you were a doctor that was doing that, but
Okay.
that's, my apologies.
That's okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so seeming as you all are cross-trained, has it always been that way?
So for this department, they first brought on, they were one of the first in the area to bring on paramedics, and I want to say it was mid to late 70s that they did. And they didn't have ambulances like we have now. They had some older style vans, and they had a station wagon. Is one of the stories I heard.
Okay.
So, yeah, they've made a lot. Technology has made huge progresses, which have been great, but it's also super expensive.
Don't we all know? Sometimes I'm like, how do some of these companies afford all of this technology? Like my MacBook, I have a MacBook, and it's an older one. It's like 2016, and I spent a nice little penny on it. Obviously, I saved up for it, but still, it's a 2016, and it's 2021, and it was about $900, and I was just like, well. You know, like I worked, this is what I did throughout the pandemic, and this was like a little birthday gift for myself, but Jesus.
I'm with you, because I'm a MacBook fan myself, because I know it's a high quality product. I know I'm going to get my money out of it, but having to come up with the money, and you're like, oh, that one hurts. So then I'm really careful with it too. Like, please don't hurt it.
Yes. On an average day, what is it like for you as a captain?
Oh, I work in an office, so I'm just this keyboard warrior. I help do inspections. When the Fire Prevention Bureau, they need help, like, hey, I got it, I'll go help do that. My job, I'm in charge of training, so either I'll spell out, hey, you guys need to go train on this, or I go out there and I actually train with them. And then fire investigations. So the fires that we do have, and the crews are there and they're like, yeah, we don't know. Okay, so then I come out and I investigate it.
Okay, nice. And then what is the average day like for, I don't know, you're a captain, what comes before a captain?
So then we have our shift captains,
okay,
and lieutenants that work under them, and then the firefighters. So for the shift captain, he's riding on engine one, and he's taking care of making sure he's got enough people working. They've got duties that they need to do throughout the day. He's making sure they're getting out the door, because sometimes they don't hear the call, and it's a technology issue, an equipment issue. And then trying to forecast, do we have enough people working the next day? So I guess scheduling again. And then they also have other projects that they're working on. So like the captain working today, he's in charge of hydrants all throughout the city. So he'll go out and he will, if a hydrant needs painted so it looks like the rest of the hydrants for the city of Garfield Heights, he takes care of that. He goes and he flow tests them. And I'm not saying it's every single day, but yeah, they're busy. And the lieutenants are the same way. They'll have, so like, there's a lieutenant over at Station 2, and we have another lieutenant working today. That both those lieutenants, they're going to be going on calls. They're going to work on the projects that they're working on. In fact, the lieutenant that's working now at this station, we're switching to a new scheduling software, so he's got to resurrect this old Google spreadsheet we're using, and he's putting that all together, which thank God, because I don't have time to do it, because I got other stuff. I'm trying to get caught up with other records and stuff, so yeah.
That's super nifty. I'm very tech savvy, so I know the ins and outs of like iOS and Microsoft. But then over the course of the pandemic, even though like I kind of knew about Google, I started learning more about the different aspects: Google Docs, Google Drive, like you said, Google Spreadsheet, and I was just like, oh my God, this is a lot. But also just like kind of luckily, they all somewhat emulate one another, whether it's Microsoft 360, it's Google Docs, or if it's Apple doesn't really have their own version of it. They just utilize both Microsoft and Google.
Yeah, I mean, you can use, I don't know what Apple calls it. I don't know if they call theirs sheets or not, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You could do simple math formulas, but you're putting anything in there like import range and do this and what ifs, no, I ain't doing it.
Right. And then I noticed you said station 1 and station 2. This location is?
This is station 1.
Okay, and then station 2 is located where?
131st and Alvin.
Okay, and so that's kind of over by the boulevard, correct?
It's actually off of Broadway.
Oh, okay.
And that's like a small little neighborhood. So like we'll say in the early 1900s and stuff, those neighborhoods were established up there.
Yes.
And then slowly everything started being established throughout the rest of the city. This used to all be farmland at one time. And in fact, if you look at certain houses, you'll be like, it kind of doesn't fit there. That was probably an old farmhouse.
That makes sense. It's funny, I actually grew up in Garfield Heights, so it's kind of different to be back here and see everything, but like I never really noticed that. I didn't really learn the history, so thank you for enlightening me.
Sure.
I never would have thought Garfield was farmland, but then to think about it, I feel like a lot of places in Ohio were actually farmland. Once I left the high school, I left after freshman year, and I moved over to we moved over to Northfield, so I went there, and that was obviously a lot of farmland. And it was like actually still being developed when I moved over there, so it was kind of nifty to see, like some beings had like country accents and still going to like this modern day high school, and I was like, oh, this is so different.